environment that would be created would not serve to ensure that all students feel supported while exploring real-world issues. Thus, we humbly request that you take advantage of our classroom experience when making the policy when making this policy to consider how this, or really any policy, would work in the classroom dynamic. Therefore, we'll be here throughout the meeting to be available for questions in that regard. And once again, thank you for addressing this. It's an important topic, and we just really want to make sure that it gets done right the first time.
Can I add? Mine is very short. I just have for you all a typed up version of our most pressing concerns, again, about the draft that we saw most recently. So just to paraphrase, the most pressing concerns, the top really just reiterates what Steve just said, but our most pressing concerns as far as the edited version that we had available to us is that the opt-in policy would create a barrier to collecting data for certain groups. Also, that requiring students to send out material to parents beforehand would create an undue burden and thus an inequity for students who chose those certain topics. And then lastly, the policy as written and available to us directly contradicts a major sentiment expressed within the Civic Action Project mandate, which is below to how do we foster a classroom of trust and openness to ensure that all students feel supported while exploring real world issues. And I also included below some important information to note around just to clear up some things to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Are anonymous, and we're happy to kind of go through that with you in more detail to show you exactly how that works in the Google format. Surveys are not mandatory for students to answer. However, if they choose to answer, there may be questions that are required in order for them to get the full picture of the data they're looking to retrieve. Action has been taken within Tohoto. We now have a survey policy regarding all surveys that are sent out within Tohoto, and also a survey policy that is particular to the Civic Action Project guidelines, so more specific for that particular aspect. And then just some more details for that conflict with the state guidelines. There's some quotes below there to help you better understand where that's coming from, where that last concern is coming from. So I'm happy to go into any of that further should you need clarification.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks both of you. Anybody else? All right. So Lori, we have the policy here printed out for us. Just to address your number one concern, which I heard is the opt-in language. This current version that we're discussing tonight and that we may present to the full committee does not include the words opt-in. Okay? Lori, Al, we have a package here that sort of puts the history of this together. I first want to say this has nothing to do with the civics project. It has nothing to do with that student, that survey, that particular project. The only way that's involved is because it was that survey that brought this to our attention. That's it. This policy comes straight from the MASC group. Because of that survey that went out, I think we made a couple of edits, and I think that's probably the most important thing to go through right now. So in this package here, Lori, they're highlighted in yellow, but I'll just run through them real quick. Al, feel free to jump in if you have anything to say as well.
I'm going to sneak aside you for a second. Okay, good. Share with you.
Yes.
Oh, you got one for me? Yeah. All right, got it. Thank you.
All right, so the first change from the MASC is in the second paragraph regarding parents having access to the materials in order to make a decision. It does say to be included. The first change is regarding surveys and how they're going out. So it says to be included in or be sent or any other part of BBRSD. Basically, that language talks about what types of surveys need parent permission for, and we're just revising this to suggest any survey that goes out would need some parent information to be involved there. The second one, the list of 8 items. All right, number 3, the attitudes and behaviors. we felt this was a little light in the MASC version. So all we want to do is add what we believe attitudes and behaviors include. And so it says, for the avoidance of any doubt in BBRSD, this also includes but is not limited to questions concerning sexual orientation, gender or preferred gender, or anything related to a student's sexuality or sexual identity unless otherwise required by law. We feel that this adds to protections, not takes away from protections for students. What it does is basically says, if you're asking a question about a student's orientation or identity, you must have parent permission before requiring them to answer that question. So you can't compel or force a student to answer that question without having permission from the parents. The MASC policy language starts out by saying, they're double-sided here, so I'm out of order.
Okay.
The second paragraph starts out by saying this is directly from MASC without prior written consent of the student's parent. So that's included in there. So that was the second change. The third change, this is what refers to the information. Parents have a right to request information or in regard to the survey. We're suggesting that if we're going to be looking for parents' permission, might as well just send them the information at the same time, just so that they have everything they need in order to make that decision. The other change is the second paragraph in there that talks about that, and it says they have the option to see the materials, and we're just changing that to saying that they shall be provided the materials. The seventh paragraph we want to add here, it says, to be clear, parents must be given the opportunity to opt their children out within a reasonable time frame before any survey is sent. A reasonable time frame would be at least a full calendar week in advance of sending the survey, perhaps longer depending on the situation. And that just refers to a process of getting the parents' permission. And then there are some additional changes in here that we made after talking to Peter that night after that meeting. An option, if the schools want, to have a form sent out at the beginning of school. You know, do you want your kid to be involved in any surveys? Yes or no. Parents can pick at that time. But they also have the option for each individual survey if they wanted. If they chose at the beginning of the year to not participate in any surveys, and a survey comes out that maybe they want to be included in, they have the right to be included in that. So that's an example of a form that we might use at the beginning of the year. It doesn't have to be used. We can discuss what that form would include. So those are the changes to the MASC policy on this.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt through the chair. Can I just ask, can you just clarify that a little bit more for me? So for parent, so I'm going to keep it to the simplest form. So for parents that I don't want my kid's picture taken, right? And then all of a sudden some sports figure was coming in and I want my daughter's picture taken with them. So how would they go about doing that? I'm just asking, I don't know. So
In that case, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I would assume there'd be some talk about that beforehand.
Okay.
And maybe they could, but
because that happened to me once before. Like they didn't
Yeah, I
want
can
their
see
picture
that
taken.
happening, yeah.
Then we had this Patriots play. I mean, this is so simplified compared
Yeah.
to what we're talking about here. Then the Patriots play came in, the mom and dad like, I want my kid's picture now taken with this player, right? And so we didn't have a process for that because we had the one process that they were opting,
opting out.
not to have that happen. So just something to think about.
So
Doesn't
the
have
way
to answer now.
the way I see the process is at the beginning of the year. I'm not interested in any pictures, or I'm not interested in any surveys.
Yep.
And then, for some reason, when a survey is going to happen through this, you would be required to tell parents about it anyway.
Yep.
And they can then decide, you know what? Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Include me in that.
So we'd have to talk to the schools and see like what does that look like for a school, right?
And the hope would be it'd be an electronic,
Yep.
click a button
Yep.
and save it, and then
Great.
there we go. So
And I think that's more on our end than your end, anyways.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Just something to think
it
about.
would be up to there. So it says in here, so the paragraph that was added, I'll just read it out loud. Written consent may be obtained at the start of the school year using the form below. So long as a copy of this policy is provided along with the form, parent notification must still take place each time a survey is to be sent. This says at least 10 days, but we can discuss that prior to the survey being distributed, along with a copy of the survey questions or other materials. Parents, guardians, or a student if 18 or older may elect to opt out or opt in or out of individual surveys regardless of the initial annual election. So that's the language that talks about that right there. A record of each election should be maintained by the district and referenced before sending of any survey to ensure no violations of the policy.
Thank you.
So that's it. We also have in here a couple of examples of other schools around here and their policies around surveys.
Yes.
Specifically, Lexington and Wellesley were the ones that I was able to find easily enough. So they're in there. Lexington is actually pretty straightforward and small. If anybody wants to do that one instead, I'd be in favor of that. Wellesley's similar to MASC. It talks about PPRA. It talks about having the right to provide consent before giving a survey, and talks about the right to opt out. Lexington one, the number 4 bullet there, it says that students participating in studies must have the approval of their parents. So it's sort of much simpler way of saying everything we've said here. Also, we did include the survey questions that went out and the letter from Merrick O'Connell after they reviewed those changes. So, if you agree, we can send this on to the committee for a vote tomorrow. Or if you have questions, we can discuss them.
And I'm playing catch up here. I can use that for at least a couple more days, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me, from meeting with you guys, and full disclosure, I met with this group of teachers the other day, just to get some clarity of myself and understanding. And I've met with obviously our school committee. This seems like it's I think what everybody wants in place. Am I off on that? Because it seems like to be a good compromise, what we all agree to.
Can I I know it's
Are you okay with that?
That was,
Right.
yeah.
Sure.
So I'm just thinking of a practical. The reason the civic action's brought up is because I think for us it's easier for administration and teachers. The survey on the top level, opt in or out. The civic action in terms of materials will be provided. A lot of times, a survey when a student starts on their journey of what is my project going to be. A lot of times the survey is the first thing they do. So I'm paraphrasing, there's that piece about will provide all the materials behind it. That kid may not have anything except, I'm curious about gender identity and overall treatment in school and someone's experience with that. That's the thing I'm starting with. So
I think the way
that's something to think
Can
about.
I add to
I think
that
the
too?
yeah.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
You got to go through the
Just let me
I'm sorry.
just
Go ahead.
I think in a situation like that, I think if there is no material, then there is no material to review. It would just, the question or the topic would be the thing to present, and then I would think at the point where you're looking for parent consent would be the point where a survey has already been constructed. So you have the survey. That the survey might be the material. It might just be that. And if it is just that, what this is saying is informed parents would like to do a survey on X. This is the survey. Do we have your permission?
Through the chair. I think we got to remember what policies is way up here, right? We got to look at, and I know you guys are looking through this lens here, which I appreciate, but they're writing policy for the entire district. So we got to be thinking about if something's happening at the elementary schools, right? If something's happening all over the place. So their policies got to be written at this global level. And I know you're looking that lens, but just keep that in mind. I think what they're asking right now with this policy in place covers what you guys are looking for as well too. That whole opt-in, opt-out, I think that's been rectified by the work that they've done in changing that.
And that's why I'm wondering if Danielle's point about maybe something in there specific to the state required civil action, just a note in there to recognize this is a little bit different on the high school level, student driven,
The only concern and question I have with that is that this is a right that belongs to each individual student, regardless of who's sending it, what is being sent through. When we start getting into categorizing when do these rights apply, when do they not apply, they stop becoming rights. So if a student has a right not to answer a survey, the student has a right not to answer a survey. So I think it would just start to make it a little convoluted if we say, well, if it's sent by this group, then it's okay, but if it's sent by this group, then we have to follow this. I think that just gets a logistical nightmare, and just the right is with the student to not answer it.
Absolutely.
A student can send whatever they want, but the right is with the student to not answer it.
And the more, through the chair, the more specific we get, the harder it is to have the policy. And just any policy, it's sort of like a blanket covering. So we got to try to make everything fit in there. But the more specific you make a policy, the harder it is to fit other things in it. So you got to look at the level. I know that might not make sense to you guys, but at this level, it needs to be a policy that can adhere to everyone in the district, not just what you're
Well, we
looking.
understand, and I guess it's the practical, and I'm not arguing, I'm thinking about the providing material, because paid professionals, we know, all right, I'm sending out a survey, here's what it's about to inform the parent.
To the best you can, I think.
To the best we can, but how would we, the reason I'm going specific with civic action is because it's student driven.
Yep.
So how would we want to be addressing, all right, students, you need to be providing this, like, how is that? That's the conversation I'm curious.
I think that's through the chair. I think that's the work that we need to do at the school level, not at the district level. That they're writing this policy for. I think that's the work. So once the policy is in place, if we find the work isn't fitting into that, that's the work we do, and then go back to the school committee again on it.
Okay.
It's got to be at this level. It's got to be able to encompassing as educators. I'm sorry, I'm through the chair. It's got to encompass all of our district.
I'm going to
That's
ask you
what
to stop
policy.
saying that.
What's? I'm sorry. You don't want me to say that? Okay, good.
Just go ahead and speak. Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Okay, good.
Come on.
So that's what we got. That's what we really got to be looking at.
I think Steve has something to say.
Well, I do. I just don't want to break the rules.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to get my head around a couple of things. Okay, so it's specifically dealing with the topics here. Okay, and so just logistically, we have the Civic Action Project for for the entire class. Okay, Group A is doing student parking. Group B is doing improving the, hoping to improve the basketball court in the center of town. Okay, and Group C is doing mental health. Okay, so it's not, is mental health on this?
Yes.
Mental health
Yes,
might
yeah.
be, but the others probably not.
So, Group C then will, by and large, have to come up with some sort of a set of materials for their survey to be put out, whereas Group A and Group B do not.
I think it'd be as simple as the survey questions.
Yeah, just the survey questions.
They were saying that was the material.
So
I think that's back to my first
Yeah.
choice.
That was really, I'm just trying to get
This
my
is
head
what we
around
have
it in
so
regards
far.
to equity.
That's it.
Because if you're doing a survey, like, I mean, maybe you have a textbook that you're saying, okay, we're going to start teaching this mental health textbook versus this one. In that case, you would probably give the title of the book, the authors.
Mhm.
But the questions themselves, I think, would be the material in question that they would, just so they know what they're opting out of.
So you want the parents to see the survey and not just a paraphrasing a general.
When
Can
it
your
all
kid take
when
a
it all
survey?
possible is, I think, what the verbiage is, right? They're trying
Yeah.
to get.
And I'm not being combative. I just want
Yeah,
one
that's
more
fine.
thing. I'm struggling with the difference between that and opt-in.
So the other part of this is it's not our rule. This is Federal Department of
Yeah.
Education language.
Mhm.
It's we have the link in here. These are hard copies, obviously, but when you go to it, it says right there, without prior written consent.
If-
That's the way it's worded.
So actually, that's one thing that I did want to say. If you go to the MASC website and you go at the top, you go to the policy section, you type in September 2023, you will see that we didn't come up with this.
Sorry.
They sent it to us. Every year, this is how we go over policy. They send us ones that we're supposed to have or update. We didn't have this policy. Mike and I did not make this policy. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees made this policy, and it's based on federal law. We didn't pick any of this out. We just wanted to add in more about the sex behavior and attitudes because we want to protect that class. It's not a punishment, it's a protection for them. They should be included in this. So that's why the only thing that we changed really was explaining what that encompassed.
And I think that's the part everyone was missing. Because when I talked to the school committee about this, their feelings, and talked to you, I think everyone's on the same page looking to protect that. But for them even adding that adds another layer of protection in there. As opposed to just keeping the policy as, again, we pay MASC to write these policies for us, right? So most districts don't even touch them, say, as is. But for them to even go a step further is pretty admirable for them to do.
Yeah.
To respond to Lori, and like I understand ILD and you read it and I have the original language and looked at that and accepting that policy as is, no problem with that as it was written. The amendment, the part of it that I think is problematic for me is that you've now included students to be people who cannot reach out through surveys. That policy as written was to prevent
I
government
think that's a
institutions-
misunderstanding.
No, because I think you amended the language to say any person sending out a survey. It's in the first paragraph, what you amended to it.
So,
Is that correct?
because the right not to answer that question belongs to the survey,
Well, I know-
the
no
student
one's
receiving
questioning
it. So it's not like if a teacher sends it, we want to apply this policy, but if a student sends it, we don't. Because it doesn't say that a student doesn't have the right to not answer a question from a teacher, but they do have the right not to answer it from
Okay,
us.
so I think maybe the confusion is coming in with because I've heard you say this numerous times, is that there is, as far as my understanding and our understanding, if I'm speak for you guys, is that there is never no survey at all that is ever required of anybody to answer. And I know we went back and forth about this in the school committee meeting, and you said, Peter, it says required right here.
Right.
And I know what you're talking about on that. And it's when, as Danielle pointed out, it's when surveys are chosen to be answered, right? Student has the right to choose to answer or not answer a survey, right? And we agree, no one has to answer any surveys, ever, right? Federal law protects that. Once students choose to answer a survey, in order for the survey to be complete and gather efficient data, there has to be certain questions that have to be answered in order for the survey to be completed. That's when it says required. So it's not required that the survey's answered, it's just that this question, when I fill out Google Forms and
If there was an explanation like that at
no,
the top of the
100%, I
survey,
think that's where
I
some
think
of this confusion comes from.
it absolutely is.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Absolutely
Obviously,
is,
I was
yeah.
breaking protocol to talk about that during my public comments. But that's where, afterward, I wanted to address that with you. Is like, I think some of this is coming from that miscommunication or
I think so,
misunderstanding
yeah.
as to what surveys are. Surveys are never required. No one is ever required to answer a survey, ever, regardless of who sends it. So the policy ILD is to protect individuals' rights from government institutions formulating any type of ideas about who they are based on their gender, their race, their creed, any of those things. So, and we're all in agreement on that. And we're all in agreement that parents have every right to protect their children from information they don't want them to be exposed to, right, through health curriculum or anything like that. We're all in agreement on that. Parents have the right to opt their children out of those things. The issue I take is with the language as written, as that you proposed, now includes students from being able to ask those questions of their classmates when it's specifically applied to like exhibition or to civic action project, which we are encouraged by the state to ask the hard questions, to look at these things. We talked about the harassment that our gay and trans students have felt in our school, right? And that was why this survey first came out, right? It was to explore those things. And now with these restrictions or different set of rules, if you will, for students who want to send out surveys on these topics as listed in ILD, that might disincentivize students to study those things because of the extra steps that have to go through, which then leads to the problem that there are these big topics that need to be talked about. What grade level they get talked about, totally up for debate, right? But it would disincentivize people down the road from even wanting to explore those things because it's like, why do I have to go through all these extra steps that other students don't have to? That's too hard. I don't want to go through that. I don't want the controversy. I don't want the attention brought to me.
I hear what you're saying.
So-
If I could just stop you right there for a second. We don't have the ability to write a policy that allows us to not follow the law. That's not a legal
Correct.
way to do it. So we don't even need, we could vote this policy down right now and not have it, but you would still have to do everything it says. So,
So I guess my
that's the
question
challenge.
is like, how are we not doing what the policy says?
I don't know that you are going forward. I think that particular one in question, I think it definitely didn't quite follow this. The whole reason this even came to our attention, Peter, is because a parent was upset that it landed in his 11-year-old's inbox.
Right.
And they didn't have any idea about
So
it.
this was the impetus behind.
That's how it came to our attention. We realized we didn't have, so I started looking.
Right.
What's the survey rules? Okay, I noticed we didn't have this policy. I noticed MASC had it, and here we are.
So this school, may continue. The
Yes.
school, from what I understand, Lisa sat down with this parent.
Yeah, that's been addressed, but we've got to look at the policy
No,
going
I get
forward.
that. I get that. And so what I'm looking for, I guess, is now that we as a staff have addressed this, we've looked at this policy, we've corrected some things that need to be fixed. How are we not following ILD as written and as put forth by MASC, which are the federal law, that there is no survey ever that any student has to answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it is protocol. I think, and we all agree that parents should have the right to know what their students are learning, and everybody has that open to them. And so I think that's already addressed.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose behind this, I guess you could say? Where we're coming from, where I'm coming from more than anything, is I see it being a restriction to individual students who may want to explore these things. And as I indicated, I mean, you guys know where I fall on this, that I really believe it's going to impact a student's equal opportunity to unobstructed studying of material and having opportunities that their classmates have. Then they have to go through a different set of rules. That's that fine line. I think we're all in agreement. We
I
want to
think-
protect kids.
Do we
We want
make
to do
it
all
a
that.
blanket that everybody has to do it? And
Well,
it's
Yeah,
equal?
you want to be
Well, that's
careful.
what I mean.
You want to be careful what you're adding
But
now.
ILD covers that already.
Yeah.
So the amendments to me are where the issue lies, because all of a sudden with the amendments in here, right? I look at ILD as being a protection of federal rights, civil rights. The way it's amendment, and again, the civil rights firm that I talked about.
Which one specifically? Because I think the one you're talking about is no longer here.
No, not the opt-in. It wasn't that. It's
Which one?
also the other language about that it must be provided at any time from students, parents. It's like it's right after number 8. It's the 2 paragraphs following with the amendment to that language.
Yeah, so if you're gonna go out to, basically it's if you're gonna go get permission from parents,
Right.
tell them what you're asking permission for.
Right. So it was clarified. I have a better understanding of
Yeah.
what that intent was here today, but it's the language as written to me still gets in the way of a student being able to research material unobstructed. With
But
I hear what you're
I'm hoping I can like clarify everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the version we had, which I know is not exactly
Mm-hmm.
what you have, but so the paragraph after the 8 denotation of topics, all instructional materials, including teacher manuals, films, tapes, and other supplementary materials, blah blah blah, or evaluation shall, sorry, everyone see where I am, be sent to parents ahead of the event. For me as a teacher, that is the part that is the most problematic.
That's changed.
That part is changed.
Do you want to look
Can
at
I-
mine?
can I
Yes,
see
I'll
it?
look with Mike. Why don't you look at that? That might help you guys.
That
yeah.
would definitely
Yeah.
help.
so now it's
Sorry.
with,
So
right,
it's
right.
is this the change, or is I had it on a different page?
No, so here it's gone back to just the
Yeah,
phrase,
so
the
sent
fact-
parents
Oh, I
ahead
gave
of
her
the
a different
event.
Is
one.
that right?
I gave
You
her a
gave it
different
the
one.
Oh, you gave me the different.
I gave you the
okay.
MASC.
Yeah, this is
My
the,
apologies.
This is the one
Okay.
as this is
Yeah.
the one as written, right? But this is
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
reference materials from Mass State Commission. Yeah.
So the change is, instead of shall be available
So
upon
if you-
request,
I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
it's shall be sent ahead of the event.
Yes.
So, I mean, the intent for that is so that parents understand what they're agreeing to or not agreeing to. If you want to suggest some more elegant language, I'm certainly open to hearing it.
Well, maybe I guess a little clarification, because what I'm reading that as now is that, well, my student has now, chosen this. Take Steve's example, right? I have a group that wants to study mental health. Well, now they have to send out a request from parents with their survey questions, wait for that to be answered, in some sort of time frame, and then they can send out their questions. So that puts them.
But that wouldn't
Behind their
change.
peers.
That wouldn't change. You would still have to notify them and get permission. It's just if there's any other materials being used as part of this project, making those available for review.
So can I
And that's just for parents who have opted out, right? If parents are opting,
No, it's
No.
no.
no, go ahead.
If you have to go to a parent to ask for their permission, the original language is that they can come in and review at any time or at a reasonable time, right? So this is simply saying, instead of waiting for them to read your email a week later after it goes out, talk about it at dinner for a couple of nights, figure out what they want to do about it, then respond back to you and say, you know what, I like this. It's Monday morning now. Thursday I have off of work. I'd like to come in and review the materials. Now you're like maybe 2 weeks waiting for this decision to be made. What this is saying is, as part of that email that goes out, just include what you're asking them to look at. And the one thing that did come back from the attorney is, what if there's hard copy materials that aren't easy to be sent out? But again, I think to your point, that's something for you guys to figure out a way to go about and handle that. But it has to be done one way or another. We're just changing it from they can come in at their leisure to send it at the time you ask for permission, because that's going to speed up the process to get you the response that you need.
And I think my response to that would be, that's what, if ILD unamended, if we adopt that unamended, right, and we were to send out information at the beginning of the school year at the same time that we send out about the pictures and things like that, or about the health curriculum, you send that all out at the beginning of the year, that's when parents opt out of those issues. Then we're taken care of. Right from the beginning, you could have something of students throughout the year, especially with Civic Action Project, exhibitions from our high school students, often cover sensitive topics, immigration, in this case, transphobia, things like that. You could list, here are some topics that have come in the past that could be sensitive, and parents might want to be aware of that. If that's done in August, the last week of August, first week of September, parents say, all right, I don't want my students receiving any of that information, I'm opting out. Then we're covered. And it's ILD as written. We don't have to, and maybe you would add including student surveys, right? So, and then this other material, the other language that's added or had originally been, you added on this document down here, you eliminate those things, because that's also the problematic area. And that's what I was talking about after the school committee meeting. I was like, it's not just the opting out or in. There's other language that we find to be problematic. And it's those areas, because now with like the phrase at any time, that could be, a student could be 4 weeks into their research, then all of a sudden a parent shows up because they just read their email, and it's like, wait, what's going on? But if we take care of that ahead of time, which I think we're all in agreement on, that then we're covered.
I mean, I'm happy
Parents'
to move it
rights are
back to the
protected.
original language.
Yeah.
I just think that puts more of a time constraint on you guys, a delay.
I would, to speak to that point, if you do it at the beginning of the year, civic action exhibition, all of those happen much later in the year. So there wouldn't be much of a delay if we have
Well, you wouldn't have those materials necessarily at the beginning of the year.
No,
would you?
what I would
we're just
say-
saying, excuse me,
Yeah.
here are the list of the topics outlined, whatever the 8 topics outlined may include, and we could throw in some examples of past exhibitions or whatever it is. If you wish to opt out, you could do it by category or across the board. Opt out of your student receiving a survey based on one of these topics. Please indicate as such.
But one thing, I'd be careful what you wish for, right? So you do something like that, and parents are opting out of it because they don't know, right? And they're just seeing those general big bucket categories. It's a lot easier for them if they want to opt out of that, as opposed to what this policy says. We're going to send it to you ahead of time because people are fear of the unknown, right? And so, okay, this is what. I'm okay with that. I'm going to say yes to
I
this.
get that.
Yeah.
But what you're asking them to do now is send this thing out, and even myself as a parent of 3 is like, oh, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And there are some families that might say, better not, right? Because I'm not sure.
Well, you could keep
So
it
be
blanket.
fair of the unknown,
No,
and be careful what you ask for.
I appreciate
I think
that.
you should go back to what they're asking for, and this way it just really, you get to pick and choose as you're going along, and you got to share those with parents, and parents have the option to say yes, no, yes, no. Just something to think
Can I
about.
ask just a point of clarification? Would this be as simple as, say, we have a lot of email lists at Tohoto, right? Like class of 2025. Would this be as simple as the student, finishes the survey and they send parents, here's all parents, this is a survey I'm doing. And then they're covered. Like, is that as simple as it would be, or but then would they have to wait for a response back? Like, that's where the logistics to me get.
Would it be like a
difficult for
Google sheet where they
students.
would?
The response back is without prior written consent. That's the response back, right? That's what the law says. I mean, I can't. I mean, maybe the fight is above us
Yeah.
in this case.
I think
So-
So anybody who decides not to opt, I'm so sorry. Anybody who decides not to opt out within a reasonable period of time, that survey then gets sent to this.
On any survey, on these 8 topics, this is not our language. It says without prior written consent, no student shall be required
Yeah.
as part of a program to.
That's all I'm asking, is the logistics of it. So we send out the survey to the parents first.
Yeah.
Parents look at it. They have a week to respond. If they don't
That
respond,
was a non-answer.
they haven't opted out.
I would say it's not opt out or opt in.
it's no.
It's without prior written consent.
And if they don't respond because you gave them that information, then you move forward.
with the survey to their child?
Without prior written consent, the way I interpret
go to them.
it wouldn't go
It
to
wouldn't
them.
go to them.
Because they haven't
That's right.
given consent
That's
for
right.
it. They haven't said no, but they also haven't said.
That's the way I read
This
it.
It's
is
a
where,
purgatory.
to me, the issue becomes now we're putting obstacles in way of children. Because
But that's there with or without this.
No, I understand, but ILD is written to prevent government institutions
Mm-hmm.
from doing that. By you adding the students to this now, it has muddied the water tremendously.
But the way it reads is that the right belongs to the student,
Correct.
regardless of the entity sending.
No, because the original language of ILD in the federal law is never really addressed students. Students asking peer survey questions. This is to prevent me as a teacher knowing or forming
So
any
the
type
the
of
problem I
bias
have with
based
that,
on-
Peter, is there are some things on here, right? Number 4 specifically, illegal behavior, right? Where we've got a student asking another student about illegal behavior in school. And we've got a host of other policies that address illegal behavior. How are they handling that? Do they even know what those policies are? Are they being guided to understand the implications if they uncover illegal behavior through this survey? Like what happens? One of these questions in particular was, are you aware of any discrimination against LGBT from a, I forget exactly the wording of it, but basically from a teacher or from the office? If the answer to that is yes, that's like what has been done about that in the district before? Has there been an investigation? Has there been any wrongdoing found? Has there been anything like we have in fact, later on today's agenda, we have harassment and discrimination policies to talk about. So if the answer to that question from any student is yes, that's not just a nice class project. That's possibly something illegal going on in the school.
That's the point of the Civic Action Project.
Well, that should be the point of the administration to
No,
find
but-
this out
no,
and
that's just
prevent
it. How do you find out this information if we can't ask the questions?
Mm-hmm.
So we've asked the question. Now it's like, oh my God, we've got some things we need to work on.
Yeah.
So then that's what the students are encouraged then to go do is you bring forth. I don't know who answered the question because it's checked off as anonymous, so you don't know who the information's coming in from. So no one's gathering any personal data on anybody individual because there's no way of tracking who answered those questions. So it comes forth, and this is the whole point behind why the state put the Civic Action Project in place, was so that we can ask these hard questions, find these difficult answers, so that they then can come to the school committee, come to a superintendent and say, look, these are issues in our school.
Yeah.
How do we go about solving these
But
problems?
you-
That's the whole
we
point
have
behind it.
process and procedure if there is something like that going on that students can
Well, that-
follow or
this is-
teachers can follow.
Well, that's just it.
I mean, we
It's-
do
it's-
have to kind of get
it's to
wrapping up
help
on this.
It's to help students in that process so they can see that they do have a voice and they can't just not have anything done about it. So it's I feel like we're kind of chasing our
Yeah,
tail
I hear
here.
your concerns. Like Al said, this is for the entire district, not just focusing on a particular project or group. It's as broad as I think we can do it without getting into all these specifics, having to enumerate every single possible situation.
I just
If we don't have it, it still has to be followed because it's part of the laws and rules. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I just think the broader we keep it, I hear what you're saying. I don't think I think we're all on the same page. We don't disagree with you. I think we're just trying to find. I always think, and I've said this to you guys, we're the gatekeepers of our kids. Our job is to protect the kids, right? From not only this survey, but other surveys that people want to come in and survey and give information from. It's our job to protect them. But we say over and over and over again, we don't do this job alone. We don't do this job in isolation. We need your mom and dad to help us out with it. And I really think that's what I'm looking at, this policy saying, Mom and Dad, we need your help with this, because until they're 18 years of age, those parents are responsible for those kids as well too. So I really think, and again, I'm the newest one to this group, that I think that's what this policy is trying to do.
I think it's the intent of it. I don't think it executes it based on the language that's been proposed. And that's my opinion on it.
Okay.
I think it's restrictive in my opinion, and speaking
Yeah.
with the lawyer, I think it does violate student civil rights.
But you heard, well, just one last thing, you heard the intent of the
Correct.
school committee with that saying that, right? They're looking to protect that class even more. So
Right.
let's make sure we're clear about that misconception, because that's what I've heard in a couple of weeks I'm here, that I think there's a misunderstanding about that. I think the intent
Right.
is
And I think
that.
this has been an incredibly productive thing, and that's why I put forth in my first letter when I spoke back in June was, let's get the players that are going to be directly affected by this to have longer, more difficult conversations to really hash this out, to make sure that we don't put a policy in place that is going to restrict a student's right to free and equal
So
education.
here's what I'm recommending, because again, new to this. I think the policy, and it gets up to school committee to vote on this, I would welcome further conversations. I think you need to have some policy in place right now. It's already week 3 into school, right? I think we should look at this policy. Then I would be very comfortable with school committee's permission to starting some, maybe even like a subcommittee where it's a teacher working group, right? So you got not just you guys in there, but how's the elementary people feel about doing surveys here, right? And get a teacher working group, they're called, get them together, gather some information, and come back so it's not just the lens you're looking at, which I think is a great lens because that's where you are, but get from other teachers as well too, and then come back to school committee. And I think they'd be more than happy to agree to sit down and look at the policy again. Once it's written, and it's voted on, doesn't mean it's carved in stone, right? It's not Moses here, right? We go back and we can revisit it. But I would recommend a teacher working group, and that's what they're called. And I have many of those when I was in Hampden Wilbraham, and they were very productive. Get some more information, get some data, get some other teachers involved, get the union involved, and come back and say, hey, can we look at this? And I'd ask that the school committee would take a look at that as well too.
Right, and I completely agree, and I put that in my letter as well. And I think another group would be students. You should have students
Absolutely.
involved, student leadership, especially students who.
So-
because our student who did this survey had some strong opinions about. They felt that they were obstructed in doing their work.
So I'm telling
based
you,
on
as a
things-
superintendent, I would welcome that working group, that myself, and I would think the curriculum director would want to be involved with that stuff as well too, because that's the real important, the crux of this as well too. And then come back to school committee. But I think right now, my recommendation would be to you and to school committee, you vote on this as is, and then with the caveat of having a working group that will get together and then come back to school committee another time. If everyone's agreeable.
Respectfully, so Mike, Lori, so with that idea, and I think it's a great idea, maybe the move would be vote the language.
Yeah, I just wrote that.
Yeah, just vote the language at not your event, it's just the
Well-
federal.
Yeah.
So we have
We'll
the
vote. We'll
policy.
vote on this, but we'll say with the caveat that
Working group.
welcome a teacher working group to come back and revise or whatever it
We
might
can
be.
always
We figure it
revise.
out.
And yes, elementary is part of it. Again, we go back to there's that, and I think people watching this outside, the general viewing public, 12 people watching this, but,
Exactly.
that they think it's, some of this is, what the teachers want to do in school committee, and sometimes like, no, this is the state thing we have to do.
Yep.
And that the high school piece with the student-led surveys, that is an important piece that is different than elementary schools.
That's right.
It's not so much us worrying about how teachers put out surveys or administration, but that student piece that
Good.
I think there's room for more discussion.
So the onus would be on you guys to get the group together, right? And then invite my team, right? And then it's our team together. But I would put, my finance guy, gentleman or lady as well, and as well as the curriculum director, and get a principal on board, and then we get a working group. And that's where the real work is.
includes school. Because
So-
I feel like, in an unofficial way, we get the best work done when all parties involved are sitting and talking, and it's a little looser. It's been looser today. Thank you for that. Because I would hate to, if I have to do this, like, all right, this group got together. Now we're going to go talk about it again with this group, and
I think
expedite
the
some
lifting
of
is
that.
our job. I think the lifting is our job. They have the policy in place. That's one of their major jobs is to approve the policy, right? School committee. I think the lifting and the hard work that we got to do in this work is what we should be doing as a group, a working group. And then if school committee want to be invited, we can invite them. I want to be careful that because once you invite a lot of them, then it becomes their meeting because they have to post it and do all that. But if it's just ours and we say, hey, Mike and Laura, we're having this meeting, and this is what I've done in the past, you're more than welcome to come, but it's not their group, it's our group that we're having together. And then we come back to these guys and say, here's what we've done. Are you guys comfortable with that?
Yes.
I would do it. Yeah.
Are you guys comfortable with that?
Sorry, just to.
Just a couple more minutes.
Yes, no,
we got
I understand.
other
I'm
stuff to
sorry.
go over.
I just, I love the idea of a working group. That sounds fabulous. But kind of to reiterate off of what Bill said, I would strongly suggest if that's the plan that we start with the baseline of what the federal government has outlined, or state government, because it probably is amended a little bit from the federal policy. That way, everybody is kind of starting from the same baseline, and as we're meeting, we can all kind of, and with the proposed edits, and we can have those as part of the talking points. Everybody can kind of put in their 2 cents so that we can add rather than take away. If that makes sense. I feel like that would be a safer place for us.
I think what we're gonna do is
legally
we're gonna
and logistically.
we're gonna put this. This has already been a first read. We're gonna put this to the school committee tomorrow for a vote. with the caveat that yes, if you get that working group together and we want to make any revisions for whatever reason, we would listen.
Point of clarity, what are you going to put forward? Your amended policy
Yes.
or the original policy?
The amended one that we had today, not the one
That's
that you
the
have
one
right
that's in the
now.
drive right now. That's been
When we're done with this,
on
I'll
the
email it to
agenda.
you if you want me to email it to you.
Is okay. So is it because I have the one from June?
You have the
6th.
old one, yeah. It's been changed a little bit from that.
I think, speaking as superintendent, I think that you heard the intent from both these school committee members about the language. I think you'd be okay with this verbiage right now, with the caveat, and we could even put that in the proposal that there'll be a working group. And I've worked with the union before that they even created a template for me saying there'll be a working group that we're looking forward to talking about this policy, and I think everyone would sign off on that and start the work process happening.
But I'll just state it. I am not comfortable with the language as proposed. I'm against it in my professional opinion. I think it does more harm than
Okay.
good. As amended right now, I am not in support of this. Just want to put that on record.
Okay.
All right. So, Lori, should we put this through to the committee for a vote?
Yes.
All right. So we'll put that through. I'll send it to Nicole, and I'll send you guys a copy too.
Well, I mean, it's already in the drive or vote.
Yeah, we didn't make any changes to it, but I will make sure when we do the vote tomorrow that we talk about the discussion about the working group.
And the sooner we start that, the better. So let's get that on the calendar so we get some people together, particularly elementary people as well.
And it's not just Mike and I making this decision. We go over policy and we review the law, and then we bring it to the committee, and the committee decides. It's not us, and we're just trying to respect the law and to respect the people and the parents and anybody who's under and to follow the law. Really, we just don't want a lawsuit, and we want to do things right. So the committee may not pass this. That's what's in the drive, and that's what they've seen, and that's what we're going to discuss tomorrow night.
And I think you need to remember what they said publicly about the intent of the verbiage they're putting in this. And I think that's different than what people felt earlier, so I think that's important that you heard that.
All right. Thank you, guys. Feel free to stay and talk about attendance if you like.
Ironically, I'm not going to stay here.
But why?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
letting us come.
definitely. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Oh, this chair stays here, I think.
Don't worry.
Oh yeah, should we take our train of chairs?
Yes.
There are a couple here.
It's J-E and J-H, right?
Don't worry about it.
These two stay here.
Thanks, Pete.
See ya.
Wait till Al comes back in. What you got? Anything?
No, it's sophomore retreat. Let me see what they were doing. Oh, they held it within the school day at Wachusett Mountain. Oh, it's a trails retreat, not trials, trails.
Why am I connected but the email won't work?
How great is this? Wow. All right, let me see. All right, I'm gonna need to look at your attendance information too, because that's in my car as well.
Do you? I don't have. I just have what's online.
Yeah.
This is the one that Lisa brought up the other night. Lisa Square, when we were talking about the handbook.
Mhm.
She said before, if we're going to make changes, that we've got a couple of attendance policies that might be a little different. So
I did notice one of the things that I noted was like it said like if they're absent they have to have a note. For dismissals,
I mean, yeah.
it says it has to be handwritten with a parent's signature, and but doesn't say that for like is an email
All right,
okay? And
hold on, let me bring it back up.
yeah,
All right. So we have, this is ours, right? So we have JE
Mhm.
and we have JH.
yeah.
This one is from 2014, I think.
And is JH the
2014.
one that's from MASC still, or is it JE?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
And then this one is from 2020.
Okay.
And then,
Where are we at?
all right, Al, those two attendance policies.
Yes.
Lisa, did you talk to Lisa about those? Lisa Square.
Yeah, so my understanding is JH, right, is the old student absence and excuses, the old policy.
Correct. Yeah.
And the new policy is JE, which is the attendant policy, right?
That's what we have. Yeah.
So my understanding, correct me if I'm mistaken, is to get rid of this JH, right, and that we vote on JE.
So, yeah. So the only thing. All right. So here's the thing.
So originally
So
that was our plan.
talk about MASC policies and their offered suggestions and whatnot. I'm on their policy manual right now. They do not have a JE. If you look at our JE, we have JE, which was put in place October of 2020. So that
We have a JE now?
we currently have a JE, okay, in the BBRSD policy manual.
Okay.
We have JE attendance policy. We also have JH called student absences and excuses. MASC only have JH, student absences and excuses. So I don't know where JE came from. That was before my time.
Yeah.
It's dated October of 2020.
Yeah.
So that was shortly after school started during COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know which the administration prefers.
So my understanding with them is they want to eliminate JH
Okay.
and bring in JE. And they can't have two policies working basically
Right.
against each other at the same time. So that their hope was the JE.
They want JE.
They
Okay.
want JE, sorry, but which
Yep.
is the new
Yep.
policy for
Yep.
attendance.
So I was looking at JE earlier.
And does that mirror what MAS
MASC does not have.
doesn't have a
They
JE?
have JH.
And
They don't have
JH is
Does it say
closer to what we have as JH.
at the bottom of JE? Does it say that it comes from MASC or anything like that?
No, there's no.
So if you
source
look
on
at it was revised. So it's interesting because on the bottom of JE it
Yes.
says revised on October 13th of 2020,
right.
and JH
It's 2014. Yeah.
is 20. The source was MASC 2023.
JH online on ours. The one online is still dated 2014, but
What online for us?
yeah, but yeah. So MASC's JH updated 2021. Yeah, yeah. So the one they want to stick with is what you're saying is JE.
Yeah, but I'm curious because I'm looking now on October 13th of 2020 is JE, but yet JH is of 2023.
Yes,
Where do you
we-
get JH?
We did do that one last year.
We looked at it last year.
Yeah.
So it didn't get updated then.
Yeah.
And that's of 2023.
Yeah.
So that looks like it never got in there.
Yeah.
Let me see that one.
Sure. JH?
Yeah. Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, this looks like what we got online.
So I'm not sure why they'd want JE. And JH we got from MASC. It's more current.
Yeah, you got student absence notification, drop-off
Yeah.
prevention.
Yep. So I would request you guys if I can have some more time with the principal of Tohoto and
Okay.
have a little bit more. She'll be on first on my agenda tomorrow to talk to her about this a little further.
All right.
Because JH right now in the MASC is very similar to our JH. Is that correct?
JH from MASC. Yes. Correct. Yeah, it talks about days, 10 consecutive days. So, yeah, dropout prevention, 3 days of the student's absence. Yeah, JH on MASC. Most likely, this is exactly it. If we did this last year, we probably said, yeah, just go with it.
Yeah.
So, just JE.
And there's no, we don't have in ours, Mike, we have no JE.
No, we do have JE.
Do we have
MASC
JE
does
and
not.
JH?
Correct. Correct.
But MASC has
And here-
JH, right?
And this is just purely a guess on my part. But my guess is JE was sort of a last minute emergency
Yeah.
COVID
which we want to get
Situation.
eliminated. So are you telling me it's already eliminated from our policy?
No, it is
No.
in our
We have both.
JE.
So
we have
that,
both.
that's it. So
And that's the
then,
difficulty for them.
so they want to eliminate JE and just follow JH, which is MASCs as well too.
If that's what they want to do,
That's-
okay. Because if you were saying they want to keep
No,
JE,
no, they want to get rid of JE and just follow JH.
Okay.
So let me ask you this question. Okay, then I'm
That
more,
makes sense to
I'm
me
more
now,
on
too.
board with that then, because our policy JE attendance policy says that if you're absent so many times,
Yep,
I think 4 times.
yep.
No, 9 times. You start losing academic credits. Is
Yep.
that accurate?
So that's
Is
why I
that
wanna
something
get rid
that
of
is that something you would do?
No, I don't believe that unless you make it. So if you look at JH,
JH doesn't say anything like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's bothersome to me as well.
yeah.
Because, yeah.
So the JE we want to eliminate because
Yeah.
my understanding is JE and JH are both part of our policy, Berlin Boylston. We want to eliminate JE.
Yep.
No, sorry, we want to eliminate
Yes, you're
JE.
correct.
yeah, JE and just have JH.
Yeah.
JH and because it's similar to MASC.
And MASC has JH, and we want JH.
Yeah.
And that also goes along with the dates that we have as well too, would be in 2023 as
Yeah.
opposed to 2020.
Yes. Oh yeah, right there. MASC. Yeah, because this one, I don't know, starts getting a little crazy.
Yep.
In some
So
of the
we
things
should
it
not be
says.
having 2 attendance policy, JE and JH. They want to just have JH,
Yeah,
which is current
That sounds-
and goes along with MASC.
and it looks like this probably got overlooked because one is called attendance policy, but the one they want to keep is not called. It doesn't have attendance in the title. It's
Yep.
it's student absences
Yep.
and excuses.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it effectively says the same stuff. but-
Yeah.
So again, like
Okay.
I said, when that group, the closer we stay to MASS, MASC,
Yeah.
the better off we'll be all day long.
Yeah. All right. So that, as far as the agenda goes,
Does that make sense?
It
yes.
Okay.
I just had one thing, and it's really a picky thing. Each principal will notify a student's parent, 2 things, parent, guardian, within 3 days of the student's absence in the event. There's something in here about a note. Where is it? I apologize. My car's being fixed, and all of my stuff is in my car.
It's okay.
I thought it was
JH
back.
Notes.
No, maybe it's the old
word-
one.
word
I think it's
note
the old
doesn't
one.
appear.
Yeah, I think it's the old one then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the old one.
Oh
I-
no,
so I-
wait. Yeah, no, it doesn't appear. Yep.
Yep, I don't think it's in here. And is there anything about the police chief in this one? I think it's the old one as well.
Police. JE.
Because it said something like if we try to contact the parents and we don't get a hold of them for the absence, we then call the police. And I didn't think we were doing that. And if it's going to be a policy,
Yes.
either we do it or we
It
don't.
does say that. Yeah.
Is that
Parent-
JH?
JE?
That's JE, so that's the
JE,
old one.
The old one.
Okay.
The one from 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says if a parent cannot be reached, we will notify chief of police of the town
Yep.
to investigate further.
And I asked them if they do, and they don't, because it's parents are, you know what I mean, like
That
sometimes
seems
you
a
just
little
forget. It
aggressive.
seems a lot. Yeah, I think it was for student safety, but
no, not-
for-
so-
yeah, just
for
for
one
one-
day. If
Yeah.
you're absent
When
one
a
day,
student is
when it-
absent-
Yeah, so my
parents
issues-
should call
Yeah.
between
my
Yeah,
issues
that's
were
what
with
it
the
says.
old one. So yeah.
So it says,
how to make friends with your chief of police.
right?
Seriously.
Like,
Jason,
knock
now
on my
parents were like, "I'm sorry, it was a busy morning. I
So
forgot to contact you."
respectfully, there are many times as a parent I might have not called
Same.
on that very day. That
Me
might have
too.
happened.
Yeah.
So again, I think we need to go back to approving,
To JH.
eliminating JE
Yeah.
and approving JH.
Yep.
Yeah. all right.
I'm in complete agreement.
Do we think we can get that done for tomorrow? Can you
Sure.
talk to Lisa?
I will talk to Lisa. She'll
All
have
right.
my agenda tomorrow.
So we'll keep that on there as a vote to eliminate. We got to eliminate JE
Because right
not
now you have
JH.
2 policies on regarding that.
They kinda
and you want-
contradict, yeah.
That's right. And we want JH.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have JH back?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You can have
That's
that.
my only copy I have right now of everything.
All right. And then the rest of the agenda is so we got the July update from MASC. Speaking of them,
Yes, I saw that.
and it's all the AC ones which have to do with harassment. And
Which is interesting because I feel like we just did
So
a whole
here's
bunch of
here's the
those.
thing about this, okay? AC, ACA, ACAB, it's all non-discrimination policy, and they're updated because I think the federal government just updated Title IX, right?
Yes.
That's right.
I'm going to ask you, Al, for your opinion on this. Maybe Janelle might need to get involved in this. Our policy, at least AC, the first one on their list, is not in any way, shape, or form even remotely close to MASC because back when we did this in 22,
Yeah.
right before, this is one of the last things Russ did for us.
Mm-hmm.
He actually gave us some policy AC because he read through MASC and didn't believe it went far enough.
Okay.
And so we have a completely different policy in there. And now they're trying to update Title IX stuff. I wouldn't know where to begin
Okay.
in that policy to update Title IX stuff. So we might need to get some, like Janelle or
So the
somebody else.
next
to help
meeting,
with
right?
this.
If those are the majority of them are based on that, let's get Janelle in here.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
really good.
that's a good idea.
Yep.
So,
My
yeah.
attorney always said, so we used Sean Sweeney all my years in Worcester and Hampton, Wilbraham. His golden rule is the closer you stay to this,
Yeah.
I'm pointing to this, I'm sorry, the closer you stay to what MASC gives you, it's easier for him to make sure those protections are in place.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they have an army of attorneys right,
That's
right?
That's right.
Right.
So,
That's
all
right. Remember that. They're writing them for us.
Yeah.
And we pay for them to write them for us as a district and be part of the information they send to
Yeah.
us.
So this was, so this was right, 22, 23, whatever it was, 22. And he said he didn't think it went far enough to protect the district on things and just gave us a completely new
Okay.
policy.
And
And we
it's
adopted
just
it.
So the next meeting you guys have, do you schedule
Yeah.
monthly?
Well, as needed, really.
Okay. So if you want to start looking at approving those, we can schedule those and get Janelle in here as well too.
Very good
All
idea.
right.
I think it'll be good.
Cool. All right. That's all I had. Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
All right. So, meeting called a adjourned this meeting of the policy subcommittee at 3:36.
Great.